Hello dear students, let's talk about newspaper production and design. Now in here I will like to introduce you to desktop publishing with Adobe InDesign software. So before we begin, let us get some of the facts right. So the very first thing that I want to discuss is about newspaper sizes and the most widely used dimensions. By dimension, I mean the ratio of width is to height. And that is how the newspaper, or for that matter, television programs, video formats, everything are associated with this same concepts of dimension, which is basically width is to height. Now, generally, newspaper is printed on a stock newspaper of general dimension, which is 24 inch by 36 inch, which is then cut into different required sizes as per the requirement of the industry or the organization. Over the years, newspaper has been produced in various different sizes. Now the most common ones are the broadsheet, Berliner, also called midi, tabloid, also called compact, and the standardized A series size, which is A3. So let me pick out from the very first one, which is broadsheet. Now when we talk about broadsheet comes in the size of 23.622 by 29.528 inches, which is 60 by 75 centimeter or 600 by 750 millimeter. The next one, Berliner, it actually came or originated from Berlin, Germany, and is very popular in the European countries. The size of Berliner is around 12.402 by 18.504 inches, which is 31.5 by 47 centimeter, coming out to 315 by 470 millimeter. The next common size that we see newspapers being printed is a tabloid, which is 11.024 by 16.929 inches or 28 by 43 centimeter or 280 by 430 millimeter. Same dimension is also called for compact, but the idea why they are having different name is because of the nature of content they carry. While tabloids were originally designed to carry more sensitizing news, compacts deal with more serious news, and that's why they don't like to be called as tabloids, and this new term compact is coined. Last of the row is about the standardized A series sizes, which is A3. A3 is very similar to tabloid with 11.7 inches by 16.5 inches, which is 29.7 by 42 centimeter, and which translates into 297 by 420 millimeter. Here I have given the size comparison. So if this is the broadsheet size, then Berliner will look something like this as compared to broadsheet, and so is the case with the tabloid and A3. Please notice that tabloid is not exactly half the size of the broadsheet, which is generally the misconception. And here I have put all of them together just to give you a comparison. And we understand from here that A3 is a little bit wider and a little bit shorter in size than tabloid. Otherwise, they are very similar. With that, we move on to the next important discussion, that is about text processor. We need to understand that InDesign is also a text processor. Before going into InDesign, let's start from the very beginning. So what is a text processor? Text processor is any software package that is capable of handling text, and it allows us to do different things with text, like changing the font, changing the sizes, allowing us to change sizes as we go along, and things like this. Now in this scale, you will see in one extreme we have Notepad, which is highly flexible in the sense that you can open a content made with Notepad anywhere, in any platform, in any file systems. It will open everywhere, but it has limited formatting options. While on the other side we have Adobe InDesign, which is not flexible at all. Means you cannot open the file that is created with Adobe InDesign in any other software besides Adobe InDesign itself. Even it will not open the file in the previous versions of InDesign because InDesign does not support like other Adobe products except for Photoshop and Illustrator backward compatibility. It will not support the files which are created in newer versions to be opened with the older versions of the same programs or older generations of the same program. But the advantage is this is the most professional one which gives us maximum formatting options. Practically you can do anything with text you want to do with this software. And in between we have other members. For example, the next one would be the Windows WordPad, which gives you some options of formatting better than Notepad but less than Word. Word is better than Windows WordPad. It has more more formatting options, but again not as much as Microsoft Publisher. Then again, Publisher has more than Word but not as much as InDesign, while InDesign being the industry standard for the professional printing jobs. Next, we will be talking in terms of the InDesign and the basic things that we need to know about InDesign. Now, here the common things that we need to understand in InDesign is the concept of document, concept of book, and concept of library, the way InDesign determines them or the way InDesign understands them. So when we talk about a document, InDesign understands a document to be a text file which is having one or many pages. Okay, the limit of page is not there, but all of these pages are just like a single Word file or something like this. It is a single document file. Okay. Now, many such files, like you can imagine in context of a book, say for example, a book will have many chapters. So each chapter will have number of pages. So each chapter can be considered as a single document. Then all these chapters separately can be combined into a book. So which will be a collection of many InDesign documents compiled into a single book. And then we have all these books. You can imagine them to be collected into one library where you can have multiple books, different books having different number of documents and different number of documents having n number of pages as required. The next concept that we need to talk about is about the preferences. Now, for any Adobe software for that matter, in that context, any software for that matter, the softwares are made with some default setting. These settings are the common ones that the factory has decided to drive the software with. But in our practical experiences, time to time, as and when we are working with different projects, these settings may need to change. Also, depending on what kind of work you do with your softwares, these preferences need to change. Now, there are two ways to look into these changes. One, global changes, which will change the behavior of the software for not only the file on which you are working, but also on all other files which are created henceforth. For example, determining what kind of dictionary you want to use. You want to use an Oxford dictionary or a Thesaurus dictionary for your work. For example, what kind of default font you want to use. For example, if you have been working with Word, you will see the moment you open Microsoft Word, it starts with Calibri font. So similarly, in InDesign also we can set all these changes where it will start changing the behavior of the software to suit the need of a particular workflow. And this is what is called global changes. Means once you make those changes, for all the files that you are creating in the software, unless you make the change again, it will follow the same set of changes that is already been made. The other type of changes that we do is called local changes. Now, these local changes are what changes? These are changes which are specific to a single file. It is not going to change the nature or behavior of the InDesign software as a whole, but it will only execute those changes in the file in which you are working. Say for example, you want to use a US English in some file, but you generally work with UK English. So for that particular file, you can change to make it work with US English so that some of your spellings and grammars can be altered accordingly. The last section that I want to discuss in this introductory session is about the idea of calculation or idea of measuring in any typographic software in our present discussion InDesign. So any typographic material or any type for that matter is normally measured in terms of points. So here I just tried to give you a visual representation of how these points, pica and inches work. So in our theory classes we have already discussed regarding picas and points and inches, but here just we are going to give you a visual representation. So say if the first one here it represents a point, then a pica is a collection of 12 such points. An inch is a collection of 6 such picas, that is 72 such points. And in general, whenever we are working with any typographic material, we will be working in terms of the points mostly. Now, in general, when we work with American standardized papers, it is easy to work with millimeter. So I have also given you a quick fix idea about how this millimeter and points are related. So say for example, for any practical purpose, you can take 1 millimeter to be equal to around 3 points. Not exactly 3, but it is around 2.83, but for any practical purpose, we can take it to be 3 points. How this information is useful for you? So because the softwares, what we see in the screen is dependent on what resolution we are using, how much zoom you are using to see a particular document. So it is very difficult for somebody in general to assess that what kind of a point size you choose, and when you print it out, what kind of a size it will really have. So all of us, we are aware of the rulers. One side we have millimeter. So I thought, why not to translate millimeters into points so that you can understand it and more precisely design it better. So for example, say you want a printed out font to be of around 15 millimeter. So as looking at this comparison, we can easily say we need to use 3 times 15, that is 45 point size of the font. If you are using a 45 point size font, then once it is printed out, it will be somewhat around 14 to 15 millimeter. For our understanding, we can take it to be 15 millimeter. With this, I conclude this introductory session of basic information regarding the desktop publishing. In the next video, we will start up with the InDesign software itself. Thank you.